in Japan or in the problem between different countries. I think we should first about the in-country case.
This is an incredibly...
Sorry, can I raise a question? Our taxes are still already used to help Pakistan or other developing countries as ODA also. Why do Japanese allow that, but not want to help them if they have a flood loss? What is the difference between ODA and the helping?
Are you asking me or are you asking Taka?
Everyone.
You're asking everyone. Well, let me tell you the main difference. ODA, like charity, is an active voluntary choice.
Yeah, but still, tax is used for that, so we can choose the use of tax for ODA.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The point I'm trying to make is that if it is the voluntary choice of the Japanese government to issue ODA, if it is the voluntary choice of Bill Gates creating the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to help the poor, that is up to them. They can do charitable acts. That is voluntary, that is not coerced. The difference between taxes and charity is that you don't have a choice about paying taxes, but you do have a choice about whether or not you want to give money to charity. Now, what I want to ask you, and what was your name? Yoko, I want to ask you, do you think that Japan has a responsibility, a moral obligation to help Pakistan if there was a flood?
Would you ask?
Yes.
I think so, but I don't know why I think so.
Let's examine this point a little bit further. Ryoko says, I think there's a sentiment of wanting to help these people, but I don't know what it is. Takahiro says, we're not bound to help these people because they're not Japanese. And this is an incredibly interesting point. This is actually where Michael Sandel started his inquiry on justice theory. Sometimes people form societies with collective identities. These identities are called countries. Japan, you can't touch Japan, right? But we're all one in terms of sharing the same identities. We share the same culture, the same language, the same history, and perhaps that makes us morally obligated to help each other. The primary difference between helping people in Japan, being obligated to pay additional taxes to help reconstruction in Northeast Japan, and helping people in Pakistan is that in the former case, the Japanese are helping fellow Japanese. These are our own brothers and sisters, our own citizens. In the latter case, it's the Pakistanis who do not share the same cultural, the same social and collective identities as the Japanese. Now, this was the point that Michael Sandel tried to raise in communitarianism. Communitarianism says we're all part of the same community, and we ought to be helping each other out. But let's return here for a second to the issue, the primary and fundamental issue of libertarianism. Now, let's go on and get away from taxes for a second and talk about pensions. Everyone knows that Japan's pensions are very, very, very highly in debt. People don't know if Japanese pensions will be sustainable. It might make more sense not to join the pension because we need to pay 14,000 yen to join. And who knows if we'll get it back, right? Who knows if it will make economic sense? The Japanese government says every single person has to join the Japanese pension system. What I want you to tell me is whether or not you agree. But before that, let me tell you that another libertarian, this time his name is Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman says no. Milton Friedman says that there's only 3 things that a government is justified in doing. 1, the government is justified in maintaining a police force. 2, the government is justified in creating a military. And 3, the government is justified in maintaining a judicial system. Anything else, the government is not justified in doing. What I want you to tell me, now Milton Friedman says the Japanese pension system, not only does that make no economic sense at all, that is economically irrational, but he also says, and more importantly, Milton Friedman says, this is not something the government is allowed to do. Milton Friedman is one of the strongest, most influential libertarians that the world has ever seen. And he is quite convincing. So I want you to tell me whether or not you agree with Milton Friedman. We also heard from Takahiro. Once again, you're doing good today. We heard from Takahiro that we all share a common identity. Perhaps we're obligated to pay for this pension system because the elderly people need money in order to sustain their way of living. Let's take a poll. Raise your hand if you think Milton Friedman is right. The Japanese government is going too far in forcing every single citizen to join the public pension system. Okay, we have 1, 2. And raise your hand if you think every single person actually does have a moral obligation to join the Japanese public pension system. Okay, let's hear first from the majority.